34 years ago, the Parkin family moved to Levin and began looking at farming options. They investigated kiwifruit, deer farming and blueberries, and eventually settled on growing asparagus. They later leased land in Fiji in order to produce year-round, but low yields caused them to rethink the crop, and they eventually chose basil, which grows exceptionally well in the Fijian climate. They now use their Fijian-grown basil as the main ingredient in their pesto products produced in Levin.
The Parkins came to the Horowhenua in 1980. We bought a small dairy unit and we decided we didn't want to do dairying, so we looked at what other things you could do, and we started growing asparagus, and we developed a market in New Zealand and in Japan. We couldn't supply the market sufficiently in the seasonal opportunity that existed in Japan, and we actually went to Fiji to put a trial on the ground to see whether we could grow asparagus out of season. It did. It grew extremely well. But the trial we'd put in was designed to go for 4 years. After 3 years, we were so excited we decided we wouldn't run it for 4 years, and we planted up. By that stage, we'd found some land very adjacent to Nandi Airport, and we planted up 45 acres. Sadly, we should have run the trial for 4 years because although it grew, it never yielded the tonnes per hectare. So we'd invested in a black hole in the ground that took money, and we had to find something else. At that stage, what did we do? We started growing a few herbs, and we found basil, fresh, Genoese basil, would grow tremendously well, just like the asparagus, but it would grow all year round. So we were just selling fresh basil as a herb to the food service industry. In the early 90s, I discovered this green condiment called basil pesto, and one thing led to another. We bought out a small producer of pesto, a bit of intellectual property and some packaging, and 3 customers. And in 1993, we sold 27 kilos of pesto. And so that's sort of how we got to it. We're in a big trouble, tried something else. We didn't know at the time that we were ahead of our time, but we were a little bit entrepreneurial, and we were selling to chefs, the food service industry, making 1 or 2 pestos for retail brands, and we were actually making industrial products, and we also, by that stage, were selling to Singapore Air and Thai Airways. It didn't take us very long to realise that we needed to know a lot more about food and food safety. We approached Massey University. They were fantastic and taught us a huge amount of how we could make our products better, safer of course. Once we had crossed that threshold, we were then really in the marketplace to grow our business. Basil is our core business. I mean, we've made a range of other pestos. We've done coriander and dill and you name it, we've made it. But every time we make one of these alternative pestos, everyone says they love it, but then they'll buy it once and then they go back to basil. Something like basil pesto is the core product. In New Zealand, we dominate the retail market. But for us to grow, we've got to go external, export, and that's what we're just starting to do now. The farm in Fiji is called Nandi Bay Herbs, and it's situated at Nandi. It's at the northern end of the international airport, about 1 kilometre from the airport. And we've got 35 acres of land that was formerly sugarcane land. We've spent the last 20 plus years re-establishing the soil fertility there because the cane is very aggressive. But today we now have a very fertile block of land, not subject to flooding, definitely subject to cyclones, but that's in the nature of being in the tropics.
We're bringing upwards of 1,000 kilos of basil in from Fiji once a week. We actually just moved to 2 shipments a week just because of the higher volumes. That comes in refrigerated transport from Auckland, and that gets stored here in temperature-controlled storage. Then each day we're taking that basil, putting it through our washing, a 3-stage washing process. Then we spin the excess water off the basil. That's weighed into batches of appropriate size kilos of basil for each batch. That goes into our mixer and goes in with olive oil and the other ingredients, is processed into the pesto, and then from there transferred to our filling machine. Olive oil was a very key component, very important for the taste of the product. Parmesan cheese, we use Frontiera Parmesan cheese, using 2 or 3 tonne of that a month sort of thing, so we grate our own, so it's really important to grate it as we use it, adds to the flavour of the product. Using other pine nuts, garlic, which is made in Blenheim, or produced in Blenheim, and then just other things like salt and things like that as for taste. The product you saw today is uncooked, it's got no preservatives, and no artificial colours or flavours or anything like that, so it really relies on the fresh basil and the other premium ingredients we're putting in the product. I've got about 17 staff on site. That's sort of through production management, admin, technical, food safety development sort of role as well. And we have an export manager based in Auckland as well. You've constantly got to be thinking about distribution and your pricing and promotion and things like that. So it's just a constant, you've got to keep on it. It's like you're making product every day. We've got to be on the marketing side every day.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.